that local government can do more and is such a critical player in this crisis that we're facing. It was also the same motivation, was part of my reason for leaving the Labour Party in December and actually joining the Green Party that I'm now representing in the election we have in May. So as you'd expect, as the Green Party, we approach this topic with huge ambition for Brent. We don't think that the Labour track record is good enough over the past 16 years, and we think that Brent residents deserve more. The primary concept that is reflected in our manifesto is that climate change, biodiversity, and actually also how we approach planetary boundaries as a whole and our natural world shouldn't be siloed, but they should be fundamentally integrated in everything that a local authority does. This is not just a case of including climate action as an add-on, which is what you see in that Labour manifesto. It's an add-on in the Cleaner Streets section. I think often in this conversation we talk about the energy transition, we talk about our commitment to net zero, but it's actually so much wider. Would encourage all of you, I'm sure a lot of you have already read it, but there was a national security report that the Labour government commissioned and then only released due to an FOI request, which commissioned from its own security services about the relationship between biodiversity collapse and national security, and it shows just the extent of the challenge that is facing us. And this is a scale of adaptation and resilience as well as reducing our emissions. So this is not a fringe topic, but this is actually the most important thing that we will talk about during the election campaign. So there's three things really at the heart of our manifesto. I think firstly we will prioritise bold leadership on the energy transition. We have commitments on retrofit. I should also just say our manifesto is now live on our website for anyone who wants to have a look in the course of this evening. We want to scale up energy generation. We want to be more bold and robust with developers, including updating the local plan to reflect carbon and biodiversity as non-negotiable design parameters. We also want to be honest about the scale of the change ahead. And so there's a huge amount in our manifesto about resilience, about adaptation, about building a borough that can withstand and respond to crisis. We've got commitments on food security, on protecting community spaces, we've already heard about that this evening, investing in communities and in climate resilience. And we also want to transform how people can move around in Brent to support healthier and more resilient everyday lives. We want walking and wheeling to be the easy choice, so in the face of these climate shocks and rising costs, people can live healthier lives. Finally, we think it's also vital to value and protect the natural world and to support residents to engage with nature, so we've got reflections on that as well. And we also want transparency and accountability. And you'll see a number of commitments that relate to that this evening. So the Green Party in Brent has got fresh ambition, we've got bold ideas, and we've got a fully integrated view of how climate change, biodiversity collapse integrates with everything that a local authority should do. We want a fairer and greener Brent that works for everyone.
Thank you very much.
On those answers, and I think there's multiple different ways that we can talk about engagement and participation. I think we've heard a bit about sort of participation through regular engagement, which I think is something that the Green Party would absolutely continue, and credit where credit is due. Jake has actively engaged with ACE in a way that his predecessor absolutely did not, so that's good. I think we've also heard about community consultation and how important that is, particularly when there are initiatives happening that might be controversial or divisive. I think another thing that I would add is the importance of scrutiny, and actually we've got some recommendations in our manifesto about that, where we want the progress on the Climate and Ecological Emergency strategy to come regularly to a relevant scrutiny committee. We want scrutiny in general to be overhauled because we think it's incredibly important. At the moment, all of the chairs are from the administration, so they're sort of scrutinising themselves. And I think task groups are a really important and vital way of getting experts, individuals, residents into specific issues. It remains a disappointment to me that I spent a lot of time when I was a Labour councillor working on a task group related to curbside strategy, and then when I moved to the Green Party that was not published. But I think those mechanisms like that are incredibly important, because this isn't just about participating, it's not just about decision making, it's about transparency, accountability and scrutiny, and I think that is absent at the moment. selling of the freehold. I think there's two significant things here. I think the first, which we heard both from Keith and from our Conservative colleague, is this point about, well, and indeed the Lib Dems, is about consultation, participation and transparency. I think if we do need to be in a position where we're considering alternative uses, we should absolutely be consulting, be incredibly transparent, and not be seen or not be pushing things through without consultation. I think there are a number of other situations as well in Brent. This is not the only situation. And I think with regard to open metropolitan land, that is something, again, that is incredibly precious, is incredibly important to us for a variety of reasons. And the GLA are assessing that at the moment. The Green Party is campaigning to make sure that we keep that really important designation. There's a brilliant report by Caroline Russell on it, so would encourage people to read that. So no, we would protect Norfolk Park.
Thanks.
So retrofitting, we would adopt a retrofit first approach to estate renewal and regeneration. I think there are a number of really innovative funding models that are available. Camden recently collaborated with a pension company to do a retrofit of a large council block, and it was the first time that was done with actually no cost to the local authority. I think the reason retrofit is important as well is because it fundamentally improves people's qualities of life. There's not sort of the same extent of damp and mould. It reduces energy costs, and I think it's a really important area for us to consider when we're talking about housing. I think the wider issue as well that someone mentioned was just this, the housing crisis, absolutely, and this tension between sort of regeneration and needing more housing and perhaps the environment, or the protection of our natural environment. And I think that's an interesting topic as well. I would just say that the Greens' record on house building, according to ONS, nationally was actually higher than any other political party, I think it's important that we consider that as well.
But do you think that where should that balance come down to is what I'm asking you. And it's easy to say we should consider it, but if you have to give up open spaces to have more housing, what's the Greens' view on that?
I think there are a number of things that need to be considered.
That's an easy answer.
It is an easy answer. It is an easy answer. Yeah, I think there are places where that is a very real tension. But I think too often we talk about housing, and actually we're not talking about affordable housing. So that's another thing. I think a lot of.
But that's still got to go on green spaces, though.
No, it doesn't.
You don't build affordable housing on other land.
You can. You don't have to build it on metropolitan open land or Norfolk Park. Like there are brown field spaces that are available.
Okay. Do you want to add anything?
No, I think affordability of housing is paramount whenever we're talking about housing. We need to make sure it's truly affordable. I think retrofit is primary. We need to always look at retrofitting rather than demolishing, considering full carbon life cycle, embodied carbon, etc. And the Greens do have a very strong record on house building alongside environmental protection.